we're going to start having a little bit more fun now. All the serious talk is done, and that's why we have Bill here. And I'm going to start with a personal story. So I moved here 4.5 years ago from Singapore. Those of you who haven't been there, please go. It's utopian is the word I'd like to use. And I came here, I had colleagues from Adobe. I worked with Adobe in my past life, and they told me, you're not going to get a bank account, so you start with a credit union, and then you open a bank account. And I was like, of course I can get a bank account. I work with Bloomberg. They'll give me a letter. And I did get a bank account, and I went to Chase, to the branch to open an account. The guy asked, do you want a checkbook? And I sized him up, and I laughed internally, and I said, well, I wrote my last check when I was in school. No, of course I don't need it. I'm good, thank you. 2 days later, I go back, and he's laughing at me because I need a checkbook, I need to pay rent, and there's no other way I can do that. So from there to here, I'm sitting with Bill Borden discussing agentic AI in financials. I'm sorry, it's a long stretch, right? I can't get a simple payment movement without having like a check. And we're talking about how agents are going to change our lives and all of financial services will be automated. So we have a lot of work to go from there to here. And thank you, Bill, for helping us understand what the hell is going on, really, right?
That's right.
So we're talking about a move from cash to code. And we're not talking about just LLM models. We are talking about reshaping how organizations work, right? How many of you guys are working in financial services? Can we see a raise of hands?
Oh, good.
We have a lot of sympathy in the room now, right? So tell me, Bill, how has the narrative changed? You've seen this happen from so many years, right? How are leaders thinking about AI now, which is different from what we were seeing, say, 5 or 10 years ago?
Yeah, it is fascinating that an industry like financial services, based on risk management and being regulated, is actually moving at pace around AI and the implementation of it. We just came out with a study a couple of days ago. We partnered with IDC to do a study to talk with several thousand executives around the world, and of that group, and this is across multiple industries, 68% of that group said that they are moving forward with some form of AI. And there is a group, which we're going to call kind of a frontier group, that was farther out on the edge, that was actually driving 3x the ROI of the slower movers in that group. And we started to look into the dynamics of that frontier firm group, and 31% of that group happened to be financial services industry companies, which is rather amazing. And 70% of that frontier group was also in the next 6 to 7 months talking about rolling out very specific AI applications and capabilities, not just horizontal productivity things, but very specific things around business flow, business processing. And so the pace is moving, and it's moving fast. And if you think about coming out of COVID, I think it was mentioned earlier, pre-COVID, but this industry itself was actually typically a slower adopter of technology. It was not the first industry to think about moving to cloud. COVID happened.
I hope it's not the last one.
It's not the last. COVID happened, and then a very regulated, very risk-driven industry actually had to make very fast decisions. Right? You had to roll out 90% of your organization with tools to actually work from home. You had to risk accept things. You had to move through security compliance and governance structures very fast. And make decisions very fast that you wouldn't normally do. And I think there were some learnings and skill set coming out of that, because after COVID, you saw this very big increase in terms of cloud usage. And that actually set the foundation for actually thinking about AI usage now.
Absolutely. So I think in my past life, which was about 5 years ago, I was a banks analyst. And one of the things that I've noticed across the board is traditionally how banks, or even some of the other financial services vectors, have grown is by throwing people at a problem, right? Oh, you want to add a mortgages division? Hire these many people. Oh, you want to open up prime services? Hire those many people. That mindset shift of how you scale using technology, and I think you raised a very valid point, that first that technology stack or the shift to cloud is the first step that you take to then leapfrog or charge your AI journey, right? Mandeep keeps talking about AI agents day in, day out, and that's what he did with you here before this panel as well, right? You also mentioned that, Bill. how do you see that changing financial services?
Yeah, I'll go back to this concept of a frontier firm, and we've been doing a lot of work around that in research. We did a workplace index study, and again, there's this notion that firms that are on the outer edge of actually getting returns and productivity out of AI are actually starting to think much more practically about not just using AI to actually take away task work, but actually thinking about how do you infuse AI into the fabric of your company. And you heard it on stage with some of the companies up here earlier, and thinking about how you're going to do that at pace and scale. And what's changed has been dramatic, right? In 23, we just learned about the idea of having access to large language models that you can deal with in natural language discussions and the democratization of that. We just started talking about agents in January of this year. January, that's 10 months.
You know.
And now we're actually talking about, when we poll executives around the world, 70% of them are saying that in the next 12 months that they will be actually implementing some level of agents into the organization. And so there's this notion of this, what does it mean to be a frontier firm and actually to move forward at pace and scale? And it really is coming down into seeing these patterns. One, you've heard a lot about it earlier, right around a human plus a co-pilot, or someone who's going to supplement your work. And there's many examples of that out in the marketplace. But now we're moving into humans working with agents.
Absolutely.
Agents being a part of your workforce. And now the third phase of that is having autonomous agents working in control of a human.
So I think you raised a very interesting point about just reorganizing the organization in terms of how are we structured, how are the departments structured, how do we process information, what is the pipeline, right? Like how do we operate on a day-to-day basis? That needs to be rewired, which is very uncomfortable, by the way. And banks are by nature risk averse and everything, there's friction, but that's by design because we don't want to get things wrong, right? The agentic piece is really fascinating for me because I cover payments now, and agentic commerce is what all the companies are talking about, right? And I don't know how many of you caught the product drop with Visa, who showed, or actually Google did something similar as well, right? Who showed that when you go and make a purchase using an agent, so like someone goes and, right now all of you, how many of you search using ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot or any of the LLMs? Personal shopping, guys. All of you do, right? Now imagine taking the next step. All you need to do is, I need to make this trip. Can you go and find out what are my hotel options according to my preferences without having to kind of repeatedly explain everything like you do to a new intern, but they figure out your preferences within a couple of interactions and they book the trip for you, right? So that level of comfort, I am fine with it. Like, this is amazing. We do that with all our travel. But how many of you actually make the booking using, they let the agent book that trip for you? How many of you will be comfortable if the agent or LLM would go and use your card on its own to make a trip booking for you? Can I see a raise of hands?
A few.
See, exactly. When I saw that video, I was spooked because I'm fine with discovery. I don't want to use my card to make a payment, even for coffee, honestly. Like, I'm not comfortable with that idea. But we are building that confidence. It's just insane, like how, when you're searching the kind of text that comes along, the things that these companies are doing to build trust. So that is really fascinating. In terms of the banking services side of things, how much of a comfort do you think we are developing with that sort of autonomy, or how long do you think it'll take for us to get there?
Well, yeah, you heard the previous panel from an IT perspective talking about the rapid change. You know, accepting, leveraging, thinking about how you're going to get scale and productivity out of technology is nothing new, right? Using AI is nothing new, but it's the pace of what's changing that really has organizations trying to figure out how to actually harness it.
Yeah.
And harness it at an enterprise level, right? Yeah.
So let me put it this way, like between the experimentation versus an ROI focus, like where are we on that? Like, how comfortable are banks with?
It's still both, but it's very clearly not just in just how many use cases do I have and how am I doing POCs and testing. And you actually heard it, I think, from Michelle talking about how much they've rolled out in production.
Yeah.
So 24 was all about hey, how do I get use cases? How do I think about my environment? How do I think about how I bring LLMs into the enterprise structure? How do I think about security, risk modeling, compliance around it? And let me do a bunch of use cases. 25 has been dramatically different when you talk to executives. They're like, no, how do we actually start to move forward?
Yeah.
Right? And the pressure is coming down from senior executives and boards to say, how are we actually going to be enabled to actually move at pace and scale so that we are differentiating and on that frontier? And actually, you're seeing banks talk like that, which is remarkable.
Yeah.
In terms
No,
of
when
how
you
they
go
wanna do
into
it.
meeting rooms, I'm sure you go like, did you have this much discussion when you were implementing Microsoft Word? Right?
Well, there wasn't as much scrutiny, put it like that. Right?
Yeah.
People weren't looking at the ROI of Word and Excel as much as they're scrutinizing the ROI of using a Copilot.
Yeah.
So I think people are starting to get over that, and you've heard some major executives talk about it, right? And CEOs talking about it. Jamie Dimon recently talking about, hey, I spend $2 billion a year on my 145,000 employees that are using some form of AI, and I'm clearly comfortable that I'm getting the return back. So they're all about enabling to actually be ahead.
Yeah, I think those trailblazers in banking particularly have taken things quite further along, right? Like building that comfort with the followers that this is doable. We're moving on to the main part of our discussion, which was around human transformation within the context of AI disruption for financials, right? I have another question, right? This topic hits closer to heart because I work in financial services, and however much you want to believe everything that kind of goes on, there is a risk, like, how many of you actually feel empowered using AI in doing your work day to day? How many of you are like, okay, this makes me feel like, yeah, I can do my job so much better? Let's see a raise of hands first there. That's perfect. And how many of you feel like, oh, you know, will I have my job 5 years, 10 years down the line? Let's see a raise of hands. We're among friends. We can be candid. I will raise my hand. I know that my job will probably not be the same 5 years, 10 years down the line. That thought has come to my mind. Anyone? No one? Everyone is very secure in their skin. That's amazing. No, but that's the other part of it, right? Like how, when AI transformations are happening across organizations, how are they thinking about talent? And you talk day in, day out with executives. There is so much focus on productivity. So let's start there first. Like, how much of that discussion is productivity at the moment, and where are we in that cycle?
Again, you heard it on the panel before. It starts in productivity because many institutions are looking for savings to reinvest. And so the idea of productivity and low-hanging fruit around driving productivity and being able to take cost out has always been a part of financial institutions' tech strategies because your budgets don't always keep increasing,
Absolutely.
so you've got to reallocate. So that's going to be there. But the idea of finding revenue opportunities, actually reinventing how you engage with customers and partners, the idea of what that means in the marketplace to compete, the idea of breaking down actually what your service is and how they're offered in the marketplace. And as you were talking about before with agents, and if you look at other parts of the world that are more advanced with using super apps, where you live in the super app, you don't live in the banking app, you live in the super app. So the distribution of financial services and what that means, you're getting
For sure.
disintermediated from how you engage with customers, but you've got to be understanding what that model is and how your products are going to show up.
Yeah.
Your agent example was a good one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, well, how is the banking payment services in that agent structure going to show up?
Yeah.
So now you're looking at competing on a different level.
Yeah. No, and for sure, like we have a long way to go there, right? Like the one conversation that I've heard from banks is they're looking at how they can change it into a support function, from a support function to a revenue generating function, right? How do you cross-sell more of the bank using your call centers, using your support, like, or customer relations agent force in that sense, right? But again, just coming back to the whole headcount issue, and I hear you, like, but how many in the audience actually feel that their firm's headcount will increase because of AI in the next 5 years, say?
No.
No one. And how many of you think it will decrease in the next 5 years? So that's some food for thought, right? Like right now, at least what surveys we've conducted, it seems like there is a lot more positive hiring bias when it comes to AI, because we are building those capabilities and all of that. But when we reimagine banking, how will it look like when we have juiced out the initial low-hanging fruits from the AI transformation? So like, what will the middle office, front office, back office look like?
Well, institutions are thinking about that because now you have the ability to completely break down structures. So we're working with one institution where they are looking at their onboarding process, and they have retail banking, commercial banking, small business banking. Across all of those systems, there's 350 plus applications that are involved in the onboarding process. They're looking to streamline that, break down that, re-engineer it, and actually put agents around it to actually structure what data you need, retire a bunch of those applications, but they're more interested in the experience they're going to create around the individual or the corporate that's actually engaging. Because now you're going to be engaged in the right products on day one. It's going to be fast. There are going to be insights that are brought to you right away. And there's going to be forward thinking about things that you might already be needing that you haven't thought about, that the bank's going to start giving you analytics and insights on. So there is a cost piece to this, but, and you heard it on the stage too, people are very much thinking about what is the experience going to be? How are my products and services going to show up in life experiences, not just when you show up at my branch or at my website or on my phone application? It's going to be very different in terms of how people are going to be using agents and how
you're getting me all excited, Bill. Like seriously,
be involved in that, right?
Yeah.
And I will tell you, I saw the hands saying that jobs won't increase, but when Excel came out, people thought that Excel was going to kill financial organizations, right? Financial segments of companies actually grew.
Wow.
When Excel came out. If you look at the numbers of people in finance right now. So
that is true.
And 10 years ago on LinkedIn, the amount of job descriptions have changed dramatically on LinkedIn over 10 years, and we're expecting that 70% of the jobs that exist today are going to have new skills related to them in the next 2 to 3 years. So we don't know what kind of new roles are going to come out.
I'll give you one more example that you can quote around this. So same thing with payments, right? Everyone thought with digitization there'd be less revenue to go around, but actually the number of use cases have multiplied. Like earlier you'd just go and swipe your card at the restaurant. Now you pay with the card to Uber, and the Uber pays the driver, and the Uber pays the restaurant, so there are 3 transactions happening instead. So the number of transactions has gone up because of how tech has kind of evolved, right? But a very valid point in that context, Bill, is what should the next generation of bankers be trained in? Like, how do you think about skill development? I think I'm not really ready to end my career. I'm somewhere in the middle. Like, what should I be learning and doing more?
Well, you have to be getting immersed in the technology to understand what it can do and what it can think. And right now, we're actually in an early stage where we're just engaging with the technology, asking it questions. You heard about prompt engineering. The reality of it is you're going to be working with these co-pilots and agents in a way that they're going to learn about you, learn about your data, learn about your experiences, and you're going to train it to actually ask you questions as a leader, right? You should want something asking you, why are you doing it that way? Remember when you did it with this customer, how positive it was. Why don't you use it in this scenario? Remember when you set up the meeting structure, you needed these 3 people. Remember to do that. That's what we're ultimately training with these agents in terms of how they're going to give us much more richer insights. So think about it as intelligence on tap. That's what you're building and enabling. And if intelligence is on tap, then how are you going to think about organizing your business to not be hierarchical by function, but organizing humans and agents to actually drive the outcomes that you want, right, to deliver for your employees or for your customers? That's the thinking that's happening right around what's going to happen. And agents are going to be part of your organization. They're going to have to be checked in. They're going to have IDs. They're going to have permissions to what systems they can access. They're going to be part of your group. So the talent that people are looking for, and it's coming out in surveys, is people are actually thinking about who they're going to hire to actually have the mindset to manage agents. Who are you going to hire to have the mindset to actually train agents? Those are going to be really interesting skills to actually support business decision makers or people that need insights to serve their customers differently.
That is fascinating. So I actually signed up for a prompt engineering course. Guys, don't waste your time. Go that way. We're almost close to time, but I can't let you go without a rapid fire round, Bill.
Okay.
So do you use AI in your personal finances?
I do. I use it to look at spending patterns across different statements from credit card companies.
That is amazing. Okay, I need to do that. I don't do that. If AI had a seat in the boardroom, what question would it ask the CEO first?
What tools are you using to get immersed in AI? Because if you don't understand it, if you don't understand the power, how it's used, how can you guide strategies around what you're going to do with your company?
My God. So the board is going to, okay. You spent decades in finance, obviously. What is the one human skill that you think will rise because of the increasing use of AI?
There's going to be a different level of what collaboration means. And so the skill between how I can harness humans and the creativity and the final responsibility of humans, but also understand how I can actually re-engineer things with agents and combine that, that's going to be a new skill.
There's a movie around that, right? Like, how do you make friends with the agent? Interesting. Okay. What innovation in payments or commerce has excited you the most?
Well, you talked about it. I think.
Oh. Are you going to buy your next car using... Okay,
Yeah.
no. Too early.
Too early.
Are you going to buy a car in the next 5 years using agentic commerce?
I don't know if it'd be a car, but I'll definitely buy something. I mean, you have Bing now actually that can actually be on alert, be on price alert if you want to buy something. You can set that up in Bing today. Now you're going to have an agent to actually make the purchase or negotiate with another agent to make the purchase.
I encourage every one of you to go and check out that product drop. It is just fascinating. Like, just to even imagine that, from inconceivable to wow, this, I think I can get behind this kind of mindset. One last question for you now, Bill. What is the one lesson that financial leaders can learn from Microsoft's own journey in AI transformation?
You know, it's not just using it internally around how you're going to find productivity, but what you're going to find is the product development area around how you build your products and services to offer customers is going to be a massive way to think about how you inject AI into that. Because if you're not thinking about it that way, your customers are going to say, hey, I already use this particular Copilot, or I use this particular app. If your products aren't engaged and showing up there, you're going to miss out.
We have companies that are already working on that, right? But it kind of brings you back to the whole first principles, like rethink, reimagine how you're doing everything. Thank you so much, Bill. Such an enlightening conversation for me, at least. Thank you. Thanks. You've been a lovely audience.